Angelis is the national princess of her country, but on her birthday she is revealed to be a Norma, and kidnapped and sent to a remote island where she must live the rest of her life killing dragons. The game of Aria kicks off, and Princess Angelis is leading her team towards victory. Halfway through, her teammate is knocked off her vehicle, which flies using the power of mana. But rather than pursuing the win, Angelis saves her friend, giving up the match. She drives home with her brother, but she encounters a baby who is able to destroy the shield of mana, which shocks her. The mother of the baby is struggling to keep her child from being taken away, begging for help. Angelis steps in, but rather than helping the mother, she explains that her baby is a savage Norma, and tells her that it is not a human. The police escort the baby away from her mother, forever separating them. That night, Angelis is singing the endless song over her balcony, and her mother comes to join her. Her mother asks her what she wishes to do in this world, and Angelis says that she wants to find a way to save everyone from the Norma. Her mother gives her the ring that has been passed throughout her family, hoping it will one day guide her to finding the truth. The next day is Angelis' 16th birthday, and the whole nation is coming together to celebrate her. During the festival, her brother attacks the rest of his family and demonstrates to the entire public that Angelis is also Norma. Angelis gets a chance to escape with her mother, but as they run into a trap by the police officers, one of them shoots at Angelis as she breaks the mana barrier, but her mother takes the shot and falls down. Her mother tells her to live on, no matter what happens. She is sent off to a remote island and greeted by two menacing women who give her a physical. From that day, Angelis is no longer a privileged princess. Dragons, they are vicious monsters that attempt to invade Earth, and Norma's job is to stop them. Angelis learns that all Norma happen to be women and is then introduced to her fellow comrades who wear very protective plot-driven suits. Angelis thinks she's better than them because she is a national princess, and they are just insects because they're Norma. Celia, their commander, threatens Angelis to behave and to listen to her superiors. She is given her uniform, which happens to be a previously dead soldier's. Angelis rejects wearing something so plot-driven, so Celia pushes her in front of the other girls and Angelis gets embarrassed. She decides that she will wear the outfit. She is off to practice using her paramail, a mechanized drone, or better known on the island as the Norma coffin. She is scared and has no control of the vehicle, thinking that she will end up dying. After a couple of plot-driven adjustments, she immediately gets the hang of its controls, reminding her of the Aria vehicles she used to operate. After her workout, she heads home, where she is reminded of the grim reality that she now lives in. In the following days, Angelis happens to excel at all the training, and the leader of the island, Jill, thinks that this may finally be the time again for a revolution. Angelis thinks the food looks distasteful, and she doesn't eat anything at all. Two girls meet her, Miranda and Coco. Coco happens to be a fan of Angelis, and they help Angelis buy a letter to write home. Later that night, they begin their first encounter with dragons. Angelis decides to escape and drive back to her homeland instead of helping her comrades in battle. Coco wishes to follow Angelis, but as she lets out those words, a spear hits her paramail, killing her in that moment. Miranda is mortified by what she just saw, and tries to explain to Angelis that she wouldn't be able to escape, as she wouldn't have enough fuel to reach her homeland. A dragon attacks her paramail while she is distracted and eats her alive. Angelis' psyche is destroyed, and she rushes to grip onto her leader, Zola, to save her. But that only ends with Zola dying as well. Tied up in the nursery, Angelis learns that all her letters are all rejected, and that there is no longer an empire of Misurugi, her homeland. The rest of the girls beat her up for continuing to be pretentious after murdering their commander. Angelis buys graves for her fellow dead comrades, understanding now that the only way to survive is to fight the dragons. The leader of the island gives Angelis her new machine, a dusty and unused paramail that frequently locks up. This causes Angelis to nearly die in the next battle against dragons, but just as she is about to, she remembers her mother's words, to live on. A drop of her blood touches the ring, and as she screams, the ring and her paramail light up, revealing a golden and silver paramail. This is the strongest paramail on the island. This is the Vilcus, and Angelis has now activated it. Angelis realizes she doesn't want to die, so she rushes headfirst at the dragon, slashing it and freezing it, ending the battle. That night, she visits the grave of her dead soldiers, declaring that she will fight to survive and leave her past behind. She is no longer Angelis, she is now Angie. At the end of the week, the soldiers receive their payments for killing the dragons, and Angie has earned the most by far. Hilda, Chris, and Rosalie are all jealous by this and angry with the fact that she killed their beloved commander, Zola. They begin to mess with Angie by cutting her clothes and putting laxatives in her water, but all of those attempts fail. Eventually, Hilda leaves a pink cloth in Angie's engines, and during the next battle, this causes Angie's engine to explode. She goes crashing into the water and falls unconscious, waking up to a man who tied her up to the bed. He tells her that she had crashed down and that he tried to save her, but he decides to accidentally begin developing plot with Angie. She kicks him off, screaming, and runs to find her Vilcus. Looking through the engine, she finds the piece of underwear that was thrown in there, and realizes Hilda was the reason for this. The man, Tusk, comes again, and explains that he was only trying to save her and never did anything with her. He somehow manages to develop more plot in the most classic anime way.
Sensational.
Angie ties him up and leaves him in the woods. After a storm comes flooding the field, Angie is attempting to find cover but gets bit by a snake. She collapses, but Tusk rushes her home and takes care of her. He rubs all over her body and sees the ring she's wearing. He remembers losing his parents and seeing Jill walking towards him. She wakes up, and Tusk feeds her, hoping that she would now trust him a little more. Tusk reveals he's a mechanic who works on paramails in his free time, and begins to repair Vilcus. They pass their time together, fishing, eating food, and working throughout the day to repair Vilcus. During a starry night, they spend time together. A dragon suddenly appears and Angie fights it off while Tusk completes the repairs of the Vilcus, allowing her to finally head home. Angie's personal maid, Momoka, appears on the island after having sneaked into it. Yet rather than seeming excited, Angie is bothered by this. Momoka constantly attempts to give Angie everything she once had, but Angie isn't having it. She has given up the life of luxury and goes on as a Norma now. Angie learns that Momoka will soon leave the island, awaiting execution as she has learned about a secret no one must know. As Momoka is about to be escorted, Angie brings 4 giant bags of money, wishing to buy Momoka. The rule of this island is that you can buy anything with money, and the commander accepts this deal, saving Momoka's life. To cool off from all the hard work, the Norma are given a day each year to simply enjoy their life on the beach. You know what that means: plot, and even more plot. During this festival, every Norma enjoys their time on the beach, developing as much plot as possible. Angie sees this as an opportunity to escape because her sister had sent her a distress message. Angie attempts to hijack a ship to leave the island. Hilda had been planning this very same thing for years now and faces off with Angie for who will steal the ship. They agree to cooperate and make it off the island together. Hilda leaves on a motorcycle, heading to find her mother. Angie makes it back to her empire as she sneaks around to not be noticed. She arrives at a garage where she could take one of the E-area vehicles and finds one of her old friends there, Akiho. Akiho is terrified once she sees Angie, but Angie attempts to calm her down. Akiho pretends to be calm, but secretly calls security forces on Angie. When Angie notices, she is disappointed by her friend and ties her up before she escapes. Meanwhile, Hilda has made it back to her mother's home, but isn't recognized by her mother due to how much Hilda has grown. She sits at a table, waiting for her mom to bring apple pie. Angie flies on the vehicle, escaping the police. She narrowly dodges their nets and even throws grenades to make distance between her and them. She enters a secret tunnel, allowing her to reach her castle, where she is greeted by her sister. This, however, was just a trap to lure Angie, and all the armed forces reveal themselves. Hilda's mom brings the apple pie, and a young girl appears from the inside of the house. Her name is also Hilda. It becomes apparent that her mother has tried to replace her, and tells her younger daughter that Hilda is nothing but a monster. She screams at the older Hilda to leave, to never come back again. Hilda runs off, breaking down and crying. Angie's sister breaks off from the guards and approaches her sister, yet the greeting she gives her is that with a knife as she attempts to stab Angie. Her sister had also worked with the officers to trap her, and soon, Angie and Momoka are captured. Angie is brought to the stake and is whipped in front of all the citizens her brother commands. They yell for her to be hanged, and she realizes how disgusting these people are. She begins singing the endless song again, as that is the only thing that has ever led her in times of uncertainty. Yet just before she is hanged, a light flashes the night, and a man dressed in black appears to rescue her. Tusk is back, and he is ready for more plot development.
sensational.
Together, they escape back to the island, where Angie is greeted with a jail cell. She finds Hilda is also locked up with her. They reconnect, finding out how they were both abandoned by their families and treated as worthless beings. That night, Angie's sister finds her brother being seduced by a succubi. Celia visits the grave of her fallen comrades, where she is reminded of the day that the leader of the island, Jill, came back with a destroyed Vilcus. Celia wishes she could operate Vilcus and is jealous of Angie's ability. The island is attacked by a large onslaught of dragons, and they begin invading the grounds, crushing glass windows to get inside. From the distance, the Endless Time song can be heard, and 3 paramales emerge from the event horizon. They begin to turn golden and unleash their weapons, immediately destroying the other paramales and half the island alongside them. Momoka rushes to save Angie and Hilda from the prison. Meanwhile, Celia takes Angie's Vilcus, thinking she could somehow save everyone. Celia attempts to fight off the other paramales, but ends up getting destroyed as she is unable to control the Vilcus. Hilda drives Angie down to the falling Vilcus, where she jumps from one paramale to the other. In the last moment, Angie stops Vilcus from crashing and sends Celia flying for Hilda to catch her. Angie clashes with the red paramale, fending it off as laser beams fly across the ocean. After deflecting her countless attacks, Vilcus kicks the other paramale, stabilizing. The red paramale begins to once again sing the timeless song. It turns golden and launches the ultimate cannons once again. Angie recognizes the song and begins singing it as well. Singing the song, the Vilcus's console shines with a bright orange light. The same cannons appear on the Vilcus, and both paramales launch the attack. The 2 paramales are transported to a different space. Angie meets the person operating the red paramale, Salamandian. Before their eyes, images of what appears to be past times emerge. Throughout them, it can be seen that these 2 have cooperated before together, or rather people who are similar to them have. Salamandian states the truth you seek lies within Aura, and leaves the battlefield. Once the battle is over, Celia has recognized that she will not have the ability to operate the Vilcus. World leaders come together to evaluate the destruction, and find out that Vilcus has also been activated. A strange man emerges, Embryo. He states the only 2 options are to either let the dragons invade and conquer us, or to destroy and rebuild this world. Selfish for their own lives, the rest of the world leaders agree to destroy the world and be the only inhabitants of the new one. Jill meets with Angie to discuss the history of this world and to explain the Vilcus. They do so by developing some plot as they share knowledge. She lets Angie know Embryo was once a scientist who wanted to save the world from this destruction. He created a new world where there would be mana that would solve all of humanity's problems, where there would be no hunger or conflict. However, Norma began appearing that destroyed this system, but Embryo took advantage of them. He outcasted them from the world, using them as a scapegoat for problems that occurred. There were those that resisted him, however, and teamed up with the Norma, Electra Maria von Leavenhurz. That was Jill's previous name, as she was the previous operator of the Vilcus. She wanted to free this world from Embryo's grasp, but at the end, lost her family and her arm. Vivian wakes up from a nap, feeling heavier than usual. She walks around the island, until she looks in a mirror and recognizes herself as a dragon. The rest of the commanders begin firing at her, and as Angie is ready to take aim and fire at Vivian, Vivian begins trying her hardest to mutter the song. Angie recognizes this and sings along with the dragon. Eventually, she touches the dragon, and Vivian appears. Angie sees the corpses of the dragons burn, and they begin to appear as if they were human. She realizes that all along she has been killing humans, not monsters. Right after this, Angie's brother is back and launches an attack on the island. His soldiers kill Norma, and Jill and the soldiers escape to a submarine. As the others are ready to engage the enemy, Chris is shot in the head as she is ready to leave. Ursha has been taking care of kids, but goes to find out they were all killed during the battle. Angie activates Vilcus and slashes at the ships that were sent to fight against them single-handedly. Celia attempts to stop her and bring her back to the base, but Angie slashes her away into the ocean. Angie wants to fight her brother, and nothing is going to stop her. She destroys and sinks all the ships. One by one they fall to her sword. She finally finds her brother and faces him head-on. Meanwhile, Embryo goes to heal Chris and allows her to wake up from death. The children Ursha is holding onto are also healed by his power. Angie begins to attack her brother, but Embryo blocks her. telling her that he will do it instead. He begins singing the endless song and launches his ultimate cannon, destroying Angie's brother. Jill and the rest of the crew have onboarded the submarine, and they release the water gates to allow the submarine to submerge. Tusk comes and fires at Embryo, telling Angie that he is dangerous. Embryo begins to sing once again, preparing his cannon at Tusk and his companion Vivian. Angie rushes to Tusk, screaming and activating Vilcus, turning it blue. In the last second before the cannon annihilates Tusk, Angie and Tusk vanish. Angie wakes up to Vivian in her dragon form and sees Tusk. She realizes they are now in a completely different place. There are no life signs around, and as they go on to explore, Angie recognizes the buildings as the remnants of the Misurugi Empire. Eventually, they arrive to a bomb shelter nearby. An AI-operated screen appears, explaining that this world was destroyed during World War VII, and shows them the destruction. The AI goes on to explain that Ragnamales were deployed, the prototypes of paramales, and they caused the annihilation that ended this world 538 years ago. Where has the Vilcus taken Angie and Tusk? And how was the world destroyed? If you want to find out, make sure you blow this video up for the next part. Till next time.